All right, some quick thoughts on a couple of trades that occurred today and over the past few days. For about 2 minutes, there was a video that I had dropped about the Celtics trading for Bradley Beal, and I thought that it would be a good idea. But the problem is that the day after I recorded that video, the Suns traded for Bradley Beal, and I had forgotten that I had uploaded that clip to, or loaded that clip up to be uploaded to YouTube. And so when I saw it go up, I immediately deleted it because, quite frankly, there was no point in releasing the video as it had already been proven wrong. But the trade was only proven half wrong. Half wrong. Now, obviously, the Celtics did not give up, I don't think, any of the pieces that I had said they should give up in the trade that I proposed. But I proposed a trade where the Celtics gave up Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, and maybe some pick swaps in exchange for Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. I thought that if you could pull that trade off, yes, you're giving up some depth. Yes, you're giving up Jaylen Brown. Yes, you're giving up Robert Williams. Yes, I understand you're giving up maybe some draft capital. But you're telling me that a big three of Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, Bradley Beal, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, like that is a team that can really be dangerous. And yes, you're giving up Jaylen Brown. You don't want to, but you know what? I thought it would have been a step in the right direction. So the trade was maybe not half right, maybe a third of the way right because of what I'll talk about later on. Yeah, you thought I was going to get into it now, didn't you? Nope. Not getting off topic. We are going to talk about Bradley Beal going to the Phoenix Suns, though. So, Bradley Beal, obviously, as I said, and a couple of other players. I don't remember who at this point, but a couple of other pieces to that team, I guess, were traded to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Chris Paul. I think it ended up being 6 second-round picks and 4 first-round pick swaps. So a lot of draft capital for Bradley Beal. And I'll tell you what, I think that it is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. Look, maybe I'm not one to talk considering the trade the Celtics made a couple days later and what I'm going to say about it. But here's the thing about Bradley Beal and the Phoenix Suns. I don't think Bradley Beal at this point fits the play style that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to have over there in Phoenix. So, first of all, I mean, I guess I don't really have any room to talk considering the Celtics situation. But how in the world can the Phoenix Suns have that many max players on their roster? Is anybody else kind of curious considering, we can't trade for, without giving up crazy contracts that we have, we can't get more than 2 or 3 max contract guys on a roster. And now the Suns have 4 max contracts on a roster in DeAndre Ayton, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. Now, I guess, people are going to say, well, they had 4 max contracts anyway, and Chris Paul, and then the other 3 guys that I mentioned. But Bradley Beal is still more money than Chris Paul was being paid, and they got other players as well. So it's one of those things where you just sit there and go, how in the world can the Suns afford this? Are they paying anybody else on their entire roster anything? Is it just those 4 guys and then a bunch of minimums? I don't understand. So, very strange, but even just the fit for me. I think that, Bradley Beal doesn't do all that well without the ball in his hands all that much. I think that he can be a spot-up shooter if that's what he's supposed to be, if that's what he's, forced to be. You know what I'm saying? So, when John Wall was over there, John Wall had the ball in his hands a lot, and he wasn't all that much of a shooter, and Bradley Beal was pretty good. But Bradley Beal didn't average 30 points a night until he had the ball in his hands a lot. So, I'm not so sure how great of an off-ball player Bradley Beal will be, especially after being so many years of being an on-ball player, 3 or 4 years at this point being an on-ball player and being the number 1 option, where Devin Booker also kind of needs the ball in his hands now, and Kevin Durant needs the ball in his hands as well. So it's one of those things where, there's a lot of guys that need a lot of touches, and I don't know which one of those 3 guys is going to sacrifice Because Devin Booker at this point is, people say he's the leader of that team. So is he going to sacrifice the touches? Is Kevin Durant, who's when healthy, a top 3 to top 5 player in the entire planet? Some people even still say the number 1 player on the planet when he's healthy. Is he going to sacrifice touches? Or is Bradley Beal going to have to sacrifice touches? And I think the answer is Bradley Beal has to sacrifice touches. And if that's the case, why even bother trading that much for him? I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, at least in Boston, he would have had the same role if my trade had gone through, let's say. Jaylen Brown gets traded. Bradley Beal's still a 23 to 24 point per game scorer in Boston, probably. He has a similar role that he had in Washington. Yes, Washington, that 23 points per game was the number 1 scoring option, but he's still probably going to have a similar role in terms of scoring-wise in Boston than he would have had in Phoenix, where you already have your number 1 and your number 2 that are all-stars, even all-star starters. So it doesn't make sense to me in that realm, if you know he's going to have to sacrifice, which I think he does, to trade that much for him. Second of all, I know that people rag on Chris Paul all the time, and he is older, and he's not as good as he was. I get all that. But to just blindside the guy like that and trade him is pretty horrible, and I'm going to get into more of that later, spoiler. But yeah, I don't know. The trade didn't make much sense to me, quite frankly. I didn't understand it. I still don't understand it. It's been several days since it went through, so for me at this point, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. And the thing is, I guess the thought process may be, well, if Kevin Durant gets hurt, or Devin Booker, or maybe even Devin Booker gets hurt, you've got somebody that can carry the load offensively. But that also hinges on Bradley Beal staying healthy, which is not always guaranteed either. So it's just a weird trade for me. I don't know how much I love it. I think, quite frankly, the fit doesn't make a whole lot of sense because, are you going to start Devin Booker at the 1 now? Like, he's your main ball handler now? And I know he can do it, and he has the ball in his hands a lot, but he's not a pure point guard. He never has been. So to put him into that role and expect the same results is not necessarily realistic. But we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but we'll see. And for Washington in that trade, I didn't say a whole lot about what they got because, other than the draft picks, because today they just turned around and they traded Chris Paul for Jordan Poole of the Warriors and draft picks, which I thought was incredible. Because look, I know I just said I love Chris Paul. He's one of my favorite players of all time. He's one of the best point guards, if not the best point guard of our generation. Maybe other than like a Russell Westbrook in his prime or Steph Curry. Maybe Steph Curry's probably the best. But Steph Curry's probably the best. I walk it back. So don't clip the 8-second one. I forgot about Steph Curry for a second. Sorry about that. So Chris Paul, phenomenal. That's the point. But is he really worth that much more than Jordan Poole at this point? I might rather have Jordan Poole at this point in their careers. Because Chris Paul, Jordan Poole doesn't play defense either, but at least he could probably figure out how to. At this point, Chris Paul couldn't if he wanted to because he's old and small. So it's one of the, I don't know. It didn't make much sense to me for the Wizards to trade away Bradley Beal. Or at least not, it made sense for them to trade him away. It didn't make sense for what the Suns gave up for the Suns to acquire Bradley Beal. And also, Chris Paul didn't fit on the Wizards either. But he's not going to be on the Wizards. He's going to be on the Warriors. So that's another interesting fit. Chris Paul on the Warriors. I don't know. I feel like at this point, you probably got to trade Chris Paul if you're the Warriors because I don't think that fit makes any sense. Are you going to play Andrew Wiggins at the 4? Because you're not benching Klay Thompson or Steph Curry. And Chris Paul's not a shooting guard. So Chris Paul's got to play the 1. Curry's the best shooter of all time. So he can play the 2. Sure. Klay Thompson is a 2 or a 3. So that's fine. But does that mean Wiggins is a 4? I don't think he fits as a 4. I don't think he fits as a 4 at all. I don't think he's got the size. I don't think he's got the strength. I just don't see it. And also, who's your center? Does that mean that what happens to Draymond Green now? Because Chris Paul costs more than Jordan Poole, as far as I know, in terms of annual value. So is Draymond Green out the door now, unless he takes no money to come back? I don't know. Doesn't make much sense to me, but you know what? The Wizards get some more draft capital, and so they are completely rebuilding, and it's going to be fun.
Hey guys, me again. Thank you so much for watching one of my clips from the Lopes Goes Last podcast. These clips are so much fun to do. I absolutely love making them, and I absolutely love doing them. And this podcast is my baby, so I really want this thing to grow, and I really want it to succeed. So if you did like what you see, please subscribe. Also hit that bell notification so you never miss any one of my episodes or one of my clips like this one. And please do also like and share these videos with your friends and your family so that we can make this thing grow as fast as possible. And I wanted to thank you again so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day.